It is my pleasure to introduce Tawnya Lubbes and Kristin Johnson. Tawnya Lubbes is an Associate Professor of Education, ESOL Program Coordinator, and Director of the Center for Culturally Responsive Practices and Oregon Teacher Pathway Programs, and the English for Speakers of Other Languages Program Chair. She's been serving in the field of education for 25 years and has multiple publications and presentations at the local, state, national, and international levels. Her research focuses on culturally responsive pedagogy, equity-centered teacher identity development, ESOL best practices, and online pedagogy. She has been a strong advocate for culturally inclusive practices and legislation in Oregon and has served as a member of the Oregon Educator Equity Advisory Group since 2018. Kristin Johnson is the Graduate Program Advisor and Recruiter and Oregon Teacher Pathways Mentor Coordinator in the College of Education at Eastern Oregon University. She also serves as a critical member of the Advisory Committee for the Center for Culturally Responsive Practices at EOU and is co-director for the EOU Educator Equity Plan. Her professional passions involve working with and assisting people who wish to enter the education profession and preparing culturally responsive teachers who engage in social justice. Kristin thoroughly enjoys engaging in with an array of students, from those entering their freshman year in college to others who are seasoned teachers, wishing to add a master's degree and or other additional endorsement to their credentials. Please welcome them.
Well, welcome everyone. I'll preface this with, if you attended Karin and I's presentation last year, this is not a duplication. It actually is a different group of participants and different research, but from the same program. So some of the information about the program might be a review for you, but as we know, review is good for us as learners, and the research and data and findings will be different this year. So with that, just a couple shout outs. First to the Educator Advancement Council, who provides grant funding for our program, our Oregon Teacher Pathway program. And then Dr. Karin Gomez, who I believe is on live stream, who helped with checking the external review of qualitative data, and John Briney of University of Washington, who helped with the quantitative statistical information. With that, I'm not going to go over the goals in detail. They're there, but also if you read the summary of what we plan to do today, this should look familiar to you. But essentially, we're just going to talk a little bit about the program and the students and participants, and then I'll go into our research study, methodology, historical information, theoretical underpinnings, and then results, which is all outlined right here for you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristin for a few minutes.
All right. So I want to talk just briefly, share with you the landscape of education as we know it right now. So 31.5% of our college student population are culturally and linguistically diverse. In Oregon, looking more at the K-12 population of student-teacher demographics, we see a gap between our culturally and linguistically diverse students, K-12 students, and our culturally and linguistically diverse teachers. There's a 27.9% gap between those, and that is evidenced here in this graph, where you can see the top line there shows our students, our K-12 students. So 40% of our K-12 students are culturally and linguistically diverse. The very bottom line is our teachers. So right now, well, actually of 21-22, 12.2% of our K-12 teachers are culturally and linguistically diverse. So there's quite a gap between what we're seeing. We're not having students see themselves reflected back in the teachers who are serving them. And predominantly the teachers are women as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the program. The OTP program, I think as many of you are aware, is a high school to college pathway program. So they start out taking a college level class, and if they complete that class, pass that for college credit, it's a dual credit class, and come to EOU to pursue teacher education then they can choose to be a part of our Oregon Teacher Pathway program here at Eastern Oregon University. And really our goal is, with this program, is to increase the number of culturally and linguistically diverse educators out in the field right now. So that's kind of our overarching goal with that. The program is very much centered in mentorship, and you'll see that here in the coming slides with some of the activities that they engage in. Just a few statistics about the program. It was founded in 2013. To date, we have 324 high school students who have participated in the program. And of those 324 high school students, 34% have come to EOU to pursue an education degree. When they come here, we have a really strong retention rate of 89%. And in 2019, we had our first graduates from the program. And as of now, we have 47 alumni who are out teaching in the fields back in their home communities for the most part. In between the years of 2019 and 2024, we've received $1.4 million in state funding to help support and sustain the program. And last year, we received the Witchy Award, which was a national award, so we were really honored to have been recognized in that way. A little bit about what our OTP students do here when they come to college. So when they come to college, we're really trying to reinforce a cycle of mentorship, and so they're a big part of that. And I'll talk about some of those kind of things that they engage in here in the next slide. But a few things that they receive, benefits that they receive by choosing to come to EOU and pursue education. Number one is tuition remission. They get a pretty healthy discount for all of their on-campus and education courses. So that is definitely a big factor for students, and definitely makes pursuing education, higher education, possible for many of them. We also have been able to offer a few scholarships, or some scholarships for our students that go into our Master of Arts in Teaching program. That's been in the last couple of years in particular, so that's been really exciting to help support them in their graduate studies. And then they're mentored when they come in as first and second year students. They're mentored through the program by our third and fourth year OTP students in the program. And so of course, as they progress along, then they turn into those third and fourth year mentors for our incoming first and second year mentors. They do a lot of professional development while they're here. They participate in different conferences. They participate in professional book readings, and just do a lot of resume building. So when they come out of the program, they come out with a really strong, healthy, vibrant resume, more so than most other students are going to come out with. And then we offer support during the first years of teaching. Tawnya has really worked hard with our first year teachers that have graduated to provide some resources for them that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to access in those first few years. College mentor responsibilities. So they get all these amazing things being a part of the program, but they do have to give back as well to be a part of the program. So again, in the spirit of that cycle of mentorship, our first and second year college students, OTP college students, are returning back to their home high schools to mentor students there in their home high schools. They're also attending, we have our high school classes, OTP high school classes visit campus, and when those high school classes visit campus, our OTP students here, or college students here, participate in those visits and really are very welcoming and just are an integral part of those campus visits. They attend, they return back to their home high schools to attend research presentations. They also, as I talked about, participate in quarterly professional development. So we put that on like, that's an asset for them, but it's also something that does take a lot of time, and they have to reflect on any of the professional development they do. And so that takes time as well. Each year we choose a book, or a few books, depending on the year, that they participate in a book read. They're grouped up in mentor groups, but with some first year and second year mentors and some third and fourth year mentors. And monthly they get together to discuss those books or the book that they're reading, and then reflect on that in addition to just checking up with one another and supporting each other. And then ongoing contact with us via email, and we're just kind of overseeing a lot of that throughout the entire year. And with that, we want to share, I know some of you have seen this already, but we love this video because it really talks about the program through the voices of the students. So we'll share that.
I would say the biggest impact of the program for districts and communities is having students who went to school in their communities, going to college, and then coming back to be teachers in those same communities.
Their resumes will be more extensive than most folks their age or their level of educational background. They've worked with 4 to 5 different grade levels at the elementary level before they ever start their first teaching position. Once we get them to EOU, we have about a 93% retention rate. If they come here, they're graduating, and for the most part, they're pursuing teaching.
I chose to come to EOU for the community, and I really like the small class sizes.
It's close to home. I like being close to my family so I can go back whenever I need to. The size of the campus is really nice.
I heard a lot of good things about the education program, and the OTP tuition remission has been great and saved me a lot of money.
I think being an OTP gave a bridge from the high school to the college, so we were able to keep in a small community of people that we knew and trusted.
I was able to come into EOU with like a support system.
You're placed in a group with at least 1/3 or 4th year OTP mentor, and that person helps you work through the requirements for the program.
I've had some really good mentors, just taking what I kind of learned from them and just doing that for my mentees. The one I have currently, I always told them, hey, like, he has my phone number and everything. Like, if you ever need anything, like, outside the classroom, inside the classroom, like, hey, just let me know. You kind of just have somebody to, like, guide you through it.
We focus a lot on culturally responsive teaching, so just learning about that and how it impacts the classroom and your students has just inspired me to put that in my classroom.
Do they know how to value and integrate and truly have a culture of care for every individual in the classroom? Do they know how to infuse the culture throughout the curriculum so the students are seeing themselves in the curriculum? We have the opportunity to really engage and provide and facilitate opportunities for people to continue their own professional development, which we think is really important. Diversity and equity, it's a continuum.
My favorite activity so far has been the coffee hour. It's just a great hour to socialize and, to communicate with them, what you're struggling with, what you're doing well with.
My favorite activity in the program has probably been the ed clubs. They always have fun activities, and you also get to meet other education majors.
My favorite activity would be the mentor meetings. I love connecting with people and talking about what we have read.
So many students that I see coming through have challenges that without the extra support of the program and the mentors in the program would maybe really struggle to stay in college or maybe just decide to change career paths.
They're setting you up for success because they're giving you the remission. They're giving you a real inside view of you being in the classroom. You're observing, and then after that, you are student teaching, so you're slowly taking over the classroom.
All the events that we have to attend really grow our careers and our professional development in education.
It's given me the opportunity to mentor younger students and also be mentored by older students, which is really helpful.
I'm just excited to start my career and see what I can do to help these students learn.
It's like a program that's like too good to be real. It's made me love becoming a future teacher.
I think we are creating this feeder program for districts to hire really qualified candidates in their districts that are going to stick around, because we also know that if you return to the community you grew up in, you're likely to stay.
There are people that know the community, they know the demographics, they know the culture of the community, and can be so effective because they are so embedded in that space already.
Beautiful campus here. So we wanted you to just have kind of the mentor perspective. Last year, like I said, Karn and I talked about our alumni experiences, and a couple of those folks are alumni now. But we've been collecting data, satisfaction data from our candidates for some time and our mentors, and never really done anything with it. So last summer I had the opportunity to have a summer scholar award from EOU, and really took a deep dive into 3 years of data. And just, you know, for the sake of saying so, this is all IRB sanctioned research. And so I'm just going to talk about what did those surveys look like, what were some of the results and themes that we found, and some implications moving forward. With that, really this is a descriptive case study to look at how professional development on equity, power, and privilege in a Grow Your Own Teacher program, which is our Oregon Teacher Pathway program, generates reflective practices while acknowledging areas for continuous program improvement. And so as we're training 21st century teachers in culturally responsive ways, we need to also be receptive to that feedback, because one of the things that we pride our program on is that not only are we teaching about culturally responsive practices, but we're also trying to do that and mirror that in the work we're doing through a continuous cycle of feedback and growth. So with that, I won't go super in depth into the theoretical framework, but we're looking at adult education research about the benefits of high impact constructivist approaches to teaching. We're looking at infusing critical thinking and the results of that, and we're looking at the fact that if we're not including identity development and all of its diverse manifestations in higher education in particular, students may not be comfortable with diversity in their own classrooms. So what were the methods? The distribution process, the survey was sent to 152 respondents over a 3-year period. 114 completed it, which is a 75% response rate, which if you're into research, that's pretty huge. And it was voluntary. Data were collected regarding demographic information, the Grow Your Own experience, and topics discussed during the Grow Your Own program. Demographic information here, you can see first, second, and third year, third and fourth year students. The age range pretty traditional on this campus and in our program. Why, you might ask? Because they're required to, as part of the program, they're required to come immediately after high school. So that's why that's the age range. You'll see that gender demographics, race and ethnicity demographics, of which 25, almost 26%, culturally and linguistically diverse, and then language demographics. So demographic and Likert scale responses were analyzed using descriptive statistics. Again, that data was looked at through a partner at University of Washington, John Briney. And then surveys were coded recursively using constant comparison. That's the qualitative components, with Karin Gomez looking at that as an external reviewer. We looked for themes. Data interpretations were then checked for consistency by those secondary researchers. So the Likert scale questions looked at the content of the program, the value rating. It was a 1 through 5 scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. We looked at firsthand experience in becoming a teacher, career goals, understanding the importance of diversity, understanding culture responsive pedagogy and practices, and then the characteristics of effective teaching. The open-ended questions included, why did you select EOU? If there wasn't an OTP remission, would you have still come to EOU? If not, where? How has the program contributed to their success? Favorite activity? What resources have they participated in and mentorship? What barriers might they see? And changes. So the statistical results over the 3-year period, you can see here that it shows us on the 5-point scale, the averages there, 20 or means from 21 through 23, and then the combined, which I work on percentages, so I put a percentage in parentheses there. So overall, they're pretty satisfied with the program. They're feeling like it's valuable if you want to become a teacher. The lowest area was firsthand experience about what it might be to be a teacher, and I could make a conclusion on that, that if you are a first and second year student, you're probably not having those experiences yet, and if you're MAT bound, you may not have those experiences yet, so that doesn't surprise me. Understanding of what it takes to be a teacher makes you feel like becoming a teacher is realistic. Understanding the importance of diversity, increasing understanding of culturally responsive pedagogy and practices, and then the program increased their understanding of characteristics, with the highest rating being that understanding the importance of diversity in the teacher workforce, and immediately following that, culture responsive pedagogy and practices, which I'm glad that the data is affirming that, because we pride ourselves in infusing that throughout our program. And then the qualitative things, which often are most intriguing to me as a qualitative researcher, simply because numbers are fine, but I want to know the why behind those numbers, so I want to dig a little bit deeper. So why did they choose EOU? So the major themes here were proximity to home and family. And again, these students come from our region. So when we look at our partnerships, we're looking at Malheur County, Umatilla County, Union County, Morrow County, and Baker County. And now we have Wallowa County, but they weren't included in this data. Financial considerations, the OTP program and college program reputation were the key areas of why they selected EOU. And if not, where, and I think this is really important to us as a university to look at, if they didn't have the remission in the OTP program, would you have still come to EOU? And if not, where would you have gone? I don't think we ever collect that kind of data. And maybe we are, and I just am not aware of it, just as a disclaimer, in case someone's doing that work and feels like I'm not acknowledging it. But of 114 respondents, 37% said they would have come to EOU, which interestingly enough actually aligns with our 37% of our high school students come to EOU. 45% would have gone elsewhere. 18% undecided, and 5% would not have gone to college at all. That's pretty huge. So where would they have gone? Just out of curiosity. There's some that I've never heard of before that I had to look up, but you'll see that community college is pretty significant here. And then University of Idaho, Western Oregon, University of Oregon, and I think Oregon State was pretty significant, George Fox. How does the program contribute to their success at EOU? They said new learning, application for future teaching, time management, skill development, culture responsive practices, and then mentoring relationships and support through the mentoring and relationships that they're building. Their favorite activities, mentoring, connecting with others and having a community, and professional development. And one of the things that Kristin didn't mention, which I'll just give a plug anyway for, is that over the last 3 years, we've selected a common book read, and then we've brought the author to campus. They have dinner with our students. They get to Have the author answer those burning questions they've had about what they've read. And then they do professional development for our faculty and staff, a community keynote, and then a workshop with teachers on Saturday. And so the impact of just interacting with an author, we've seen super positive results, and I think that's that professional development that they're really loving. Some barriers, mental health issues. That came up over and over again. And then close second, financial issues. Even with a remission, they're still struggling to pay for tuition. The course and program requirements and time management. Some of the recommended changes, we have had some changes about mentor structure, excessive requirements and time constraints, and I'll just let you know that we've already started making some of those changes effective this year. Topics of diversity and social justice, infuse it more, and some said infuse it less. More classroom experience, particularly those MAT-bound students don't feel like they're getting enough classroom experiences when they're majoring in math or science or chemistry is part of science, but art, music. They're not getting those in-depth pre-program experiences that other candidates might be. Communication and social connections, more opportunities to socialize. And again, I think similar to last year that we shared, they want to get together more, but they don't want so many requirements. So that's this fine balance. So our conclusions, there's some promising practices here that I definitely think can be replicated. When we talk about program replication, because we're firm believers in culture responsive teaching, I don't believe there's a golden ticket. You have to trial and error, continuous improvement, cycles of feedback. And so what works in one place, what works in the College of Education, may not necessarily work somewhere else, or even another College of Education in an urban area or another small community. But certainly there's some components that are promising that we're seeing reported in every data collection, from our alumni to our current students, to our administrators, program faculty, that I think are really promising and could be replicated. So for example, OHSU has talked about how can we build this for nursing. I think if you had structured mentorship in the program, and certainly we know grow your own is huge. Financial support, you have community building and professional development woven throughout. Those are some keys to success. We're hearing that from our students, we're hearing that from districts. We're reading it in the literature. So that's been pretty powerful, and I would say if you wanted to do a program similar, that's what you should be doing. Areas for continued growth for us, ongoing mentor training. When we first started our mentor program, we just kind of threw them in there and we're like, meet together, I don't know, have dinner. And now we have some more structure behind it, which I think is helpful, and we're providing resources to those third and fourth year students on how do you facilitate discussions about the book. Here are some questions you can ask. Refining the high school curriculum. Even though we have a common syllabus, I think we all know this at the university level, there's syllabus drift over time, and people kind of interpret it how they want. And so even though it's the same syllabus in the same class with the same curriculum, it might look wildly different from one site to another. And we do expect that a little bit because we want our teachers to be responsive to their community needs, but at the same time we need to ensure that all of the components are being infused. Additional education training, particularly what do we do with students who are not in an ed major in their undergrad, but they're headed to MAT? How can we provide more opportunities for them to get classroom experience? And then peer gatherings and reflective practices is an area we're trying to fine tune. How much is too much? How do we provide more without making it feel like they have so much to do and navigate? So with that, we're going to open it up for discussion, questions.
Speakers. Peter.
First of all, thank you so much. You know, this is really interesting, and it does exactly what we need to be doing, obviously, interacting with the community. So the one question I had is, the schools, you know, when they start out and they're still in high school, are the schools pushing them to do this, or dangling, you know, you need to come back, we do this for you, come back to our districts? How is that engagement from the schools there?
In order to participate in the program, the schools have to every year sign an MOU with us, and there's particular things they invest in and particular things that we invest in. With them, it's selecting that teacher and it being part of their regular teaching load, which is an investment. It should be someone, of course, they have to hold a master's degree, but they have to be someone who really loves teaching. If I'm burnout, I should not be teaching a class about how to be an educator. And then they have to facilitate the transportation back to the school, and we've yet to get people to commit to, we will hire you. But what we have had them commit to is first right of refusal. So they really want those students to go back and apply. And often they're hiring them. And most of our partner districts are like, if I have to hire someone on emergency licensure, I want an OTP student who at least I know has been in the classroom since they were in high school. Regarding the students, we're a fully inclusive program. So part of that means we don't want just students who are traditional AP, top of their class students. We actually know some of the best teachers were not the best students in high school. And so if you have any interest in being a teacher, we want you in the program. And to date, it's been self-selection. Now, certainly there's some encouragement for folks to do that. And there's some commitment from districts, particularly Pendleton will always say like, yeah, you go through this program, we want you back. But we also know people, students often have historical trauma in the school districts they grew up in, and they may not want to go back there to teach, and we're okay with that.
Yeah, that certainly is true. Yeah. Another question I had in terms of the data. I mean, you said the 5% wouldn't have gone to college at all, so that's huge. I mean, in terms of participation, changing the participation rate. In terms of the others who would have gone elsewhere, I mean, you mentioned that some who came here actually were still struggling with the finances in spite of the scholarship and the tuition remission. So I would assume those are really attracted by the whole way this is set up, you know, the mentoring. They see the value and they take the chance and they want to invest in themselves. The other ones, were you able to break apart how many come, let's say, purely for the money, right? It just sounds bad. It's not what I mean, right? It's really because of the support, the financial support, or how much is really due to your intensive mentoring and reaching down to high school and creating that environment that's really good.
This is the 10th year of our program, and I can tell you early on, I think they were only paying like $45 a credit back then. That's no longer the case. Things have changed. We can't sustain that. And it wasn't subsidized as much by grant funding. And so when we would do surveys like this, it would always be the money, the money, the money. I don't really care. I think because we've built up now the intensity of the program, saying, yeah, the money's like the icing on the cake, but there's so much else that we're infusing that we want you to see that. So we've been more strategic about that. But we haven't really dug any deeper into that question other than the data that was presented. I can say, if you look at the other answers in the open-ended questions, it kind of all points back to these are the things I'm taking away from this, which shows a benefit. And then you hear the student stories in the video, and they weren't given a script by any means. They just were telling their truth with an excellent videography crew that were able to capture everything along the way. So I think that they're seeing everything. When we follow up with the alumni, then we get notes. I just got a note, and I can't quote it, but an individual who's, I think, in her third, maybe fourth year teaching said, I am just so incredibly thankful for everything you provided for us. When I tell other people about what I'm getting from EOU as part of this program, they can't even believe it. As a matter of fact, they're a little bit jealous. So I think we're doing those things, but there's always room for growth.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. It's fantastic to get this feedback, so I really, really appreciate hearing that. And yeah, I shouldn't monopolize it.
Any other questions? Yes, Jared.
Good job. I have a hard-hitting question on data analysis.
Oh boy.
No. So more people participate in OTP than who come to EOU. I think there was a differential that you reported. Now, do you know reasons why people go through OTP and then they decide that they don't want to become teachers?
Do you want to answer? I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like monopolizing the answers. A lot of students, again, take this class in high school, and partway through they go to the elementary school every week, and some of them within the first few weeks are like, nope, I do not want to be a teacher. But other folks realize through research, because they do some really intentional research, and so what we found, and unfortunately there's just no way, and I don't have the capacity to follow folks, but often it's, yeah, this has been super beneficial, but I want to be a nurse. I want to work in the foster care system. I want to work, similar fields, but not education and teaching. And we're fine with that. And some of them want to become counselors, and we don't have that program, but we will soon. And some of them want to go into social work, and we don't have that program, but we will be starting that very soon. So I think we're actually opening up more pathways for more students to want to come here. And others, like their boyfriend went somewhere else, their girlfriend, their significant other, they're really athletic and they offered them a scholarship somewhere else that's, full ride. That I can't match that. But one thing I will say is we have them all apply to EOU because we are perfectly happy to be their backup plan. So when OSU falls through in August, EOU will take you, and we make that happen. But yeah, there's no telling the true stories behind that. Although we've had people go through the program, individual graduated last year, said, yeah, I just don't think teaching's for me. And then she went to Spring Symposium and she got offered a job at Spring Symposium. She's teaching elementary school in a dual language school right now, and will be coming back to do our MAT program. And I will say, more often than not, and Kristin probably sees this more, is they choose not to come to EOU or they pursue something else, and then 5 years down the line, you're like, wait, that name looks really familiar. And suddenly they're coming back and doing a teaching degree.
Thank you.
Rhea?
So what are your next steps for the program? You've talked about continuous improvement. You talked about the changes you're making. What changes you made, but what are you looking for in the future? Where's your growth?
You go first.
Okay. I would say the thing that I see that we could continue to improve on is just training our mentors to be more effective mentors. I think having a more targeted kind of mentor training, we are more targeted now than we used to be, but probably not as much as we could be. So I think that's, to me, that's an area of growth that I would like to, engage in. That's the first thing I'd say that comes to mind.
I mean, for me, it's a number of things. I think in our financial and enrollment woes right now, it makes it difficult to try and look at, our first year class is real small this year, like 5 students. And that's reflective of the education field. So how do we re-energize the field of education and pivot that message that being a teacher isn't who I want to be anymore? And I think continuing to offer support, particularly for those teachers, those alumni. When I offer like professional development, they don't even want to speak about it because they are so overwhelmed right now. When I offer them a $500 grant to buy materials and books for their classroom, that re-energizes them. So in order to do that, we have to continue exploring grant funding and ways that we can support this program moving forward. I would also say another not major, but change that's come to light. The last 2 years we've done really in-depth scholarly type reads with our students. We've gotten some pushback and they've been a little bit overwhelmed. This year, we've done children's books, young adult literature. Same themes are woven throughout the books, but it feels less intrusive or less threatening or less heavy, perhaps. But the conversations they're having are pretty incredible. So Kristin and I were just talking about, as we select what we're doing for next year, which direction do we want to go? Do we do some really academic type reading? Or do we find more children's books and another author that can infuse really quality professional development and reading in a way that our students are able to digest that and lift the weight a little bit? And I think we're going to go that direction. So that's also part of our continuous improvement that I can speak on.
Program, have you had people from other areas of Oregon or other places in the Pacific Northwest look to replicate it, talk to you about replicating it in their regions?
Yes. Yeah, Oregon actually is really invested in Grow Your Own right now. And I think that we're of the top recognized programs in the state. I'm constantly invited to speak about our program. I think everybody's looking for the golden ticket, and when I say there isn't one, and if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find it, because you really need to be serving students and partnering. I mean, partnerships means actual partnerships, not just telling people what they're doing, but actually listening and building from that. On the national level, we've had a number of people approach us, particularly when we present at conferences, and I can't even remember the name of the organization. Complete College America, which I've never heard of, but Oregon's been a member of for 13 years in higher education, moving underrepresented or minoritized populations through graduation, which is something we should be involved in. And they just reached out because they learned about our program and want to feature us, which I imagine probably will lead to some follow-up. We are not a Rhonda Fritz level of celebrity status, but definitely do have a lot of inquiries about program replication and that sort of thing. Yeah.
All right. Nathan.
Just maybe a fun one. Just wondering if you guys have a particular story you'd like to share about something that happened, or maybe a situation a student got themselves into that was.
I can't think of a funny one off the top of my head, I'm sorry to say. But in terms of just fun or just incredibly rewarding is, I would say we've had more of our OTP students come back to us towards their final years or even after graduation, just telling us how much of an impact that the program had and the relationships that they built with us and with the other students in the program. And that just like keeps the fuel to the fire. Like it just adds more fuel to the fire. Like it just keeps us energized to keep doing the work that we're doing. But I mean, I've had some in my office like crying, like I would not have graduated if it wasn't for this program and for you. And that is just like enough, like one of those is enough for us to keep doing it. And I know we both have had multiple instances where that was the case. So it's just really neat to see they recognize it and they're incredibly grateful for the work that has been put into the program. And just seeing them out in the schools now, having those, 45, 47 alumni who are out there teaching is really cool. Like now I run across them at different events at different high schools and elementary schools and middle schools, and just seeing them with their own classrooms is amazing. Like that's the dream really of what we had from the very beginning.
I can say, here's something funny that happened. It was not funny at the time, but in one of our first years, we took students across the state to a conference. It actually was our first group of graduates. And I was driving a 16-passenger van, which should never be allowed. And Kristin was driving a smaller van, and we drove them across the state. We took them to this conference. And for whatever reason, I thought this van would fit in the parking lot, a tiny parking lot in Portland. And I ended up scraping a parked car, even though, I had a student like, help me, make sure I'm not too close. And it just did not work out. The car was already beat up, so we're not really sure what damage was from us. But EOU paid a pretty penny, I believe, to fully repair that car. At the time, it was not funny. Later on, I can laugh about it and just say never again. Never again would I do that. One other thing I want Kristin just quickly to share about is some of the professional development opportunities we've had as a team to grow and participate in as a result of this work so that we can continue to be on top of our game. So if you want to talk a little bit about Montgomery this fall, just short.
Yeah, so we got to present actually a very similar version of this presentation in Montgomery, Alabama, which is truly one of the hotbeds of civil rights. And it was the best conference, and just the location of the conference was the best place we've ever gone to. And we've gone to quite a few conferences now to present on the program all over the country. But it was incredible. We got to visit the Legacy Museum, which was a very comprehensive museum that documented from the transatlantic slave trade up until modern day, what's going on modern day in terms of civil rights, particularly for Black folks in the United States. I would go to Montgomery just to go to that museum. I like museums, but I would never take a trip somewhere just for a museum typically. Highly recommend it. And then just so many other amazing opportunities that we had and got to see different other sites there. And it really just brings everything to life. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Why do we need more culturally and linguistically diverse teachers in the classrooms? Why do we need to talk about social justice and infuse that? Why is that so important? It was really powerful. It was an amazing experience for sure.
And who's curated that museum is Bryan Stevenson. So if you're not familiar with his work, he's was in his day, a young civil rights attorney who created the Equal Justice Initiative in order to help free folks who were falsely incarcerated. And he's curated that museum. It's ruined all museums in the future. And I'm not a museum person, but historical museums I'm all about. I just spent a week in Atlanta, and it was enlightening. But every one I went to, I'm like, I mean, this is okay, but we paid $2.50 to go into this museum, and it's blocks, acres of information, and it's incredible. And then Bryan Stevenson was the keynote at the conference, and it was just powerful. And so I would just say, in addition to this, the work with the students has helped us continue our journey through sharing what we're doing, but also continuing to grow and be able to share that back with our students who a lot of people don't know who Bryan Stevenson is, but if I talk to students about it, they know who that is. So that's kind of incredible to share that with them. With that, I think we're done, nope. Oh.
As faculty at EOU, we know our population is changing, and we know that we need to continue our professional development. Can you share with us upcoming professional development that we have on the horizon, please?
Yes, so young adult literature author Renee Watson will be on campus April 25th through the 27th. The 26th, there is a session for faculty and staff from 1:30 to 3 p.m. It's free, and we have refreshments, and it's not just for the College of Ed. I think often in academia, even though everyone's teaching, we don't label ourselves as teacher, and this is a professional development on how do we teach social justice through the arts. And really, I would expect to see a lot of our humanities folks attending, but it's good for everyone. And so that will take place in Huber Auditorium. And then that evening from 6 to 7 p.m., April 26th, will be a community keynote, and that will also be live streamed. So if there's faculty and staff out there, that'd be a great opportunity to offer some extra credit should you believe in such things in higher ed. I do, but I also give my students stickers. So that's what we have, and would love to see folks come out for those events that are paid for through our grant funding.
With that, let's thank our speakers again.